realized after I ended my last video that I have never explained how I bring my plants in the fall. In my mind, what I do is I pick up each plant and I carry them up 2 flights of stairs from my backyard to my sunroom, which is where I grow them in the winter. But in actuality, I think it's a lot more complex than that. I actually have a sequence with which I go through to bring my orchids in. Fred Clark has a slide in his 80% grower talk where he shows different types of orchids that grow well together based on the amount of light they need and the temperature ranges that they prefer. And he provides a high temperature and a low temperature that the orchids do best in based on the different genre. And I'll include that slide as a cutaway in this video so you can see it. But the important thing about that is if you look at the low temperatures that he provides there, most of the orchids want low temperatures no lower than 55 degrees. And some of them are warmer growers. They're hardier, quote unquote, than others. They can take more extreme temperature ranges. So their high temperatures are much higher than the other ones in the group. Like Cattleya can take much higher temperatures than Oncidiums or Phalaenopsis. And in fact, Phalaenopsis are the weakest, quote unquote, of these because their low temperatures is much higher than the other orchids and their high temperatures is much lower. So there's a much narrow temperature range that they do well in. But what I have found out over the years, because I take mine outside and then I try to leave them outside as long as possible, is that the low temperature orchids can take is much lower in the fall if they have been hardened off. So if my orchids have been outside all summer and they have a gradual cool down in the fall, it's not sudden, it's not like a sudden blizzard snowstorm, but it's getting colder each night slowly, which isn't really happening because of global warming, but it used to. That's how it used to happen. The week would just get slowly, the month would get slowly cooler as we went along. But what I found out is that you can take almost all orchids to just above freezing. So they can basically stay outside until it's about 40 degrees if they're hard from having been outside all summer. And this only applies to large orchids. Standard Cattleyas. A lot of compact Cattleyas are fine with that, but you can't do this with miniature. So no miniature can take this extreme temperature range. They're just not big enough to be able to handle it. There's not enough cells in those poor little tiny plants. But if you have bigger plants like this vanilla or any I've already brought in my Dendrobium speciosum and that bulbo, but I could have left them outside and they would have been fine. They can take it. So it does slow down the growth and the blooming on the orchid. They won't die, they won't freeze, they won't blow up, but they do start slowing down because it's colder and they are not as metabolically active. And so if I want them to grow better, obviously it's better to bring them in, but they won't, horrible things will not happen to them in such that, they won't just die. They can take it for a few weeks, I guess is what I should say. It's not like I leave these out until Christmas, but they can take a little bit. And so I actually sequentially bring in my orchids based on their temperature tolerances and how much highs and lows that they want. So for example, intermediate growers. Oncidiums are intermediate growers. I bring them in after I bring in the Cattleyas. I usually bring in the Cattleyas first because they want to be warmer to grow really well. They can take it colder, and as long as we don't have any sort of frost outside, which would damage the leaves, and I have had that happen because sometimes it just takes me a long time to bring them in because I'm working and I'm not bringing in my orchids, but then they can take it a little bit more because they like to be cooler. So the daytime like highs, which are lower, are better for the oncidium outside. Dendrobiums, like my nobile type hybrids, I leave them out longer as well because they also like to be a little bit cooler. Like kingianum types, I leave them out longer. So usually the cattleyas come in first. Any things in the Vanda family come in first, like Pinto. He's like bothering me. His tail. Look at that tail. So they can. The Vandas want to be really, really hot. They don't really have good low temperatures, and so therefore. Look at the Pinto, look at the camera. So then the Vandas have to come in first. Now I would really like to sell off my Vandas this fall at the iOS fall show. So I'm gonna try to leave them out and hope it doesn't get too cold because I don't wanna bring them in and then basically take them back out to sell them. So I just wanna leave them outside. But that's usually how I do it. I have a Cymbidium tracianum and I will leave that outside. Cymbidiums like it cool, and it needs a cool chill in order to induce it to spike. And I will leave the tracianum out until the first snow. If the first snow isn't a hard snow, so it's like a light snow and it will melt, it's not a sticking snow, then I'll just leave it out through that snow. The tracianum can completely take that and it likes it, and that's what it needs temperatures that cold for about a month for it to spike. And when I don't do that, it doesn't spike and I don't get any flowers. So I sequentially bring in my plants based on their temperature tolerances. And so there is a method to my madness, and I am, once again, I'm being bitten by this guy. He's a biter. You're a biter. Are you a bad cat? You're a bad cat, aren't you? He's tolerant though. All right, so I hope that explains how I sort of do everything. It's Vandas, Cattleyas, then Oncidiums, then Dendrobiums, and the miniatures, if I have any miniatures outside, they come in before even the Cattleyas, so they just come in first. I've already started bringing in like seedlings. So seedlings, it doesn't matter what genre they are, I consider them to be like miniatures, like babies. And so seedlings come in first because they have nothing with which to deal with the cold, and so they just come in. My grow space right now, unheated with just the sun, is about 70 to 80 degrees during the day, and it's still 72 degrees in here with no heat on right now. So plenty warm for them.